We announced last week in a joint statement from Board Chair Mark Kopinski and myself that the college is embarking on another cycle of strategic planning. This is to re-examine, renew, refresh, and add to the college's current strategic planning document. That's the way that strategic planning and strategic management ought to work. So we're excited to be beginning this new cycle. There have been a lot of factors that have been present for a long time that higher education needs to deal with. Those conditions have been aggravated and accelerated by the pandemic. Certainly, the increasing financial challenges that families, college-going families, face. It is harder and harder for parents, for families to be able to send their children to college. Accessibility, affordability is a major issue for all of us. Another factor, of course, particularly, well, for all of higher education, but particularly for our region, is the changing demographics. In our area, the number of high school graduates is declining. In our area, being the Midwest, is declining dramatically, the same as taking place in the Northeast. Illinois, this is particularly pronounced in Illinois because Illinois has suffered the largest population loss of any Midwest state over the last several years. The growth in the traditional high school age population has taken place primarily among students of color and students from lesser advantaged backgrounds, families, first generation college families. The economy, of course, is evolving dramatically. We need to be sure that the preparation that we provide for our students for careers, for meaningful lives of service, is constructed and presented in a way that resonates with them. It's coming from a variety of areas, and as economic uncertainty moves a lot of families and a lot of students to be thinking most immediately about how can I get a job upon graduation, you're starting to see educational programs that focus more exclusively on that are presenting a challenge to the traditional four-year college program. Certificate programs offered at a variety of institutions, even offered by employers themselves, are another set of competition for us. Institutions, this has been around for a long time, but as online education has become of greater quality, become more sophisticated, that's also another source of competition. There was a brief peak around 2013, about 2013, in terms of that traditional college age population, 18 to 24-year-olds. It has been ratcheting down ever since, more dramatically in our region and in our state than in some other areas. And when we get to 2026, the analogy that I always like to use, and it's dating me to use this analogy, but it's like Wile E. Coyote going off the cliff in the old Looney Tunes cartoons. It is a dramatic drop, and demographers differ slightly on when they believe that will start to come back up, but it appears now that it's not going to be until the early, perhaps even mid-2030s before you see any real recovery in that. Fortunately, those are all qualities that have defined Monmouth College since 1853. They're certainly among the attributes that we want to encourage and develop in our students. It is those attributes that have made them successful in whatever endeavors they've pursued once they have graduated from the college and gone on to the rest of their lives. That it is essential, as important as it's been before, it is essential now, and it's essential for any number of reasons. The first reason, of course, is this is how we best serve our students. This institution any college, any institution of higher, certainly any residential liberal arts college, exists to serve young people. And we have to be able to see things from their point of view. That's how we serve them, is, to understand fully what it is that they need and want at this point in their lives. Now, that doesn't mean that we abdicate the use of our expertise, our experience as educators, but we have to be able to frame and talk about this experience in a way that's compelling to prospective students. An old friend of mine who ran the Performing Arts Center at my previous institutions used to say about audiences that it's a funny thing about audiences: if they don't want to come, you can't stop them. And the same is with prospective students. And student revenue is by far our largest source of revenue. We need to be able to increase that revenue in order to reinvest into this experience. So those are a couple of reasons that it's important that we be able to respond with that kind of creativity. Number one, it's because that's why we exist, is to serve students. We owe them that creativity. We owe them that awareness of the world in which they are living and the world that they're going to go into. And it is vital for the financial stability of the college, because this is a tremendously competitive environment. And if we don't position ourselves to compete, then we are doing a disservice to our current students, and we are abdicating the mission of this college. We offer a holistic experience. This is not an experience where you check in 5 minutes before your 9:30 class and check out 5 minutes after your 3:30 class. This is an experience that's devoted to the guided growth of young people in every aspect of their lives. And so we've got to re-examine every aspect of that experience. We have to re-examine the curriculum. We have to re-examine our teaching and learning methodology. We have to look at how we program and approach life in the residence halls. We have to look at how we look at student programming. We need to look at all of our business practices. We need to look at to be sure that they effectively serve our students and serve those some of the goals that I talked about earlier. Our athletic programs, every aspect of the experience that we provide to young people, we need to be sure that it is serving that goal of their guided growth. And if we do that, we'll be able to do the things that are going to attract students, help students retain more successfully through to the completion of the degree programs, and generate the revenue that we can reinvest into this experience. The opening step of the process is a series of stakeholder conversations. This will have seven different questions that 7 different groups will consider over the course of the spring semester, beginning later this month and running through May. And these questions really are devised to help the college, to help us as a community to look at the college's internal strengths and weaknesses. What are the things that are strong about the college? What are the things that we need to address in terms of internal weaknesses that we have? It's also to look at the external environment. What's the environment in which we exist? What are the opportunities that are out there for the college? What are the threats to us that are out there, to articulate those in a clear way. Each of the 7 groups are going to be comprised of 2 members of the faculty, 2 members of the staff from all across the college's operation, 2 alumni, one alumnus from prior to 2000 and another alumnus between 2000 and 2020. We want to be sure that we get a mix of alums of older vintage and more recent alumni, 1 student, and the one family member of a current student, and a member of the local community. It is true for us, as it is for any institution located especially in a smaller community like Monmouth, that we rise and fall together. So our local community members are important stakeholders in the life of the college, and we want to have their perspectives included as well. Once the work of the stakeholder conversation groups is completed and those results compiled and a report of that work is shared out, the objective of that work is really through this analysis of internal strengths and weaknesses and external opportunities and threats, is to identify a set of strategic areas of focus, strategic objectives, call them what you will, but to have really articulated the broad areas that will, again, allow us to return to those fundamental questions. That first fundamental question being, how do we best serve today's student? And by doing that successfully, how do we recruit students more effectively? How do we retain students more effectively through to the completion of their degrees? And how do we generate revenue that we can reinvest in this experience? And so the stakeholder conversations will have helped us articulate those broad strategic objectives, those broad strategic areas of focus, and then we'll form a set of groups, one focused on each of those strategic areas. And their job will be to take it to the next level, which is to identify concrete actions that we can take then to pursue those objectives, again, to serve those four fundamental opportunities for us. Each of those specific actions will have an estimate of a cost attached to it. We'll have an individual or a group who's responsible for making sure that it happens, a timeline for it occurring, a set of metrics by which we can measure progress, and built in to then as we do that, we'll compile that into an action plan, an implementation plan that evolves then into, from the statement of broad strategic objectives is in some ways the strategic plan. The implementation plan is that second piece. It is the specific action steps. It is the timeline, the metrics, the responsible parties, the estimated costs, etc. And the goal here really is to move from strategic planning, which strategic planning, be honest, in any organization can sometimes cause people's eyes to roll and cause them to run for the door. The goal is, and it's the goal that I very much want to have for Monmouth, is that strategic planning becomes strategic management. That in all of the day-to-day operations of the college, there is a direct reference back to those broad objectives, those specific action steps. That's really the goal, and that's what we're aiming for. In terms of a timeline for the completion of the whole process, we're shooting for the end of this calendar year. That is ambitious, but it is important. If we already knew this, and the last year has certainly taught us this, that there is no time to waste. That developments, changes can run past you like a freight train, and we must move quickly so that we'll act thoroughly, we'll act carefully, but we will act expeditiously, because we owe it to the college and we owe it to the students, the ones now and the ones that are gonna come to us. And so that's sort of the broad timeline of that. Make no mistake, this is a difficult time for Monmouth College, just as it is for every college and university in America. And the pressures that we feel, the things that we talked about, the challenges that we talked about earlier, we're feeling them here the way everybody else is. And those pressures do cause anxiety. They cause concern. They can cause difference of opinions in terms of how we need to approach the challenges that are in front of us. And those differences of opinion can be good. We exist as an institution that tries to model constructive conversation, to take different perspectives and bring them together and come out with a result that's better than could have been achieved from either point of view alone. This planning process is the way for that to happen. It is a way for us to channel that energy, to take that anxiety and turn it into resolve, to turn it into action, to be able to control the destiny of this institution as effectively as we can. That's why, even in the midst of the difficult period that this is for American higher education, Monmouth College included, that's why this is an exciting prospect. Some might ask, given everything that's going on, is this the time to be engaging in such a process? My answer is, it makes this process even more important, even more necessary, even more beneficial to the college, because even in the differences of perspective that may exist in terms of the way forward for Monmouth College, the one thing that everybody, the one thing, if nothing else, the one thing that everybody who loves this institution shares is a commitment to being a force for good in the lives of young people. This college has been this way since 1853, and it will continue on to do that far into the future, and this planning process is going to help us do it. Our neighbor over in Galesburg, Carl Sandburg, once wrote, "This old anvil laughs at many broken hammers." Well, in some ways, Monmouth is an old anvil, and over the course of its history, it's laughed at a lot of broken hammers. But our job is to take this old anvil and be sure that we renew it, strengthen it, refine it, steel it, so that it can resist any hammer that anybody, anytime in the future, can throw at us.